All right, I wanted to talk to you guys today about AI music. And this is something that, it's been out there for a while now, and people have said a variety of things. This is going to be my attempt to contribute something to the conversation. I'm coming at this from the perspective of somebody that initially was pretty against the idea of AI music, and in general, I'm very skeptical of AI progress, I suppose. I'm of the mind that we've had quite a few movies that have given us warning, plenty of warnings to heed, and it seems we're not going to do that. And I have a certain view of AI in general that stretches beyond as it applies to music. And I guess I'll go ahead and mention here. I have concern that AI is going to be able to. I don't think in its form right now that it will, but who knows how fast or slow it will develop. But I have concern that it at some point is going to be able to bring things into the world or create things that we're not properly anticipating. That there are things that imagine the things that we have created in two-dimensional depictions in the movies. We've managed to be able to create through CGI incredible depictions of monsters. And I don't see why AI isn't going to be able to figure out how to bring those into actual existence. Whether it would bring the ones that we've seen in films into existence or just make up its own stuff. I don't see how we're not opening a door to a world that we do not want to open a door to. I really think that that's right around the corner. I mean, whether right around the corner means 10 years or means 100 years, I don't know. But I just think, and there's no guarantee that what I'm saying will happen, but I think that it would be foolish for people to not think that that's not possible. Because what we have proven, if there's anything that I've learned over my 39 years, of being on this planet during a time where technological advancement was rapid, that things that you think are not possible become possible. Things that previous generations would have deemed as impossible are now reality. And so I think that there's a way, and it's just about figuring out the way. And so I don't know that that's something that we want to mess around with, is giving the power. We're doing 3D printing, and I think what I'm talking about is the next or several generations down the line of what 3D printing is. The AI is going to figure out how to put together genetic codes, and we're going to empower something that's crazy. That's my thought as it pertains to AI more generally. Of course, right now it's extremely useful and it's remarkably helpful. The ability to program, to troubleshoot programs, to program your own stuff, to build websites. I've worked on my one-man band looping table with how different devices connect and communicate with one another. AI has been instrumental in helping me understand that and get things to work properly, which is, in my opinion, nothing short of unbelievable, because the amount of time that it saved and was able to accurately give information about devices that I'm sure, how does it even have information on how these devices work together? There's devices that I have all joining together that I'm sure nobody has created this particular conglomeration of different devices, and the AI is able to advise me on how to make it work. So I'm blown away by its usefulness and its practicality. Now, as it pertains to music, there's a big question as to whether it is regenerative or maybe degenerative, whether it's actually creative or it's just stealing, and whether what it's creating is authentic art. And I think there are a lot of different perspectives or angles that you can approach this on. And I'll start with, I've been skeptical of editing in general for a long time because I think editing obscures the truth. I've long been a fan of one-take recordings. I've built music tracks up in the alternative way of actually going through and editing and redoing takes and splicing things together. But I think in general, there's something that is far more honest by just doing a performance live and living with whatever it is. I think editing obscures the reality of whatever actually happened. And what we do is we create these versions of things that nobody can actually produce on their own. And then people listen to these and get wrong ideas about the skill levels that these artists hold. I think, and maybe a better way to say it is, I think one of the most significant purposes of art is to convey the truth, is to try to communicate truth using a certain medium or method. That music is one of the more profound ways that we can transfer large amounts of experiential information. You know, we can talk about feelings with music. We can maybe help spread empathetic awareness through music. And when we obfuscate with intense editing, in other words, let me put it like this. If you take a vocal track and you perform, let's say I do 8 takes of vocals on a song, and then I cut up all these vocal takes and take the best bits, whatever I think sounds the best, is most pleasing to the ears, most likely to not deter somebody from listening because there's something unpleasant to their ear. Then I can put together something that's radio ready, maybe, perhaps, right? But what actually now is the vocal communicating? Because that's the thing. When I perform a vocal and I record one or I perform live, if I do a good job, I'm intimately connected to that performance from start to finish. I never lose my focus. I go on an emotional journey, and that emotional journey is shared. And I'm deeply connected to a character or an expression that I want to give. It's an emotional transformation that occurs, and my voice reveals that transformation honestly, just vulnerably. And then I've got what I would consider a very good vocal take. Now, if I do that 8 times and I chop it all up and put different pieces together, who knows what that even says at this point, And so I think we don't have a clue what kind of damage we're doing by recording and editing and creating these. Like, how is it any different than makeup on some level? It's just makeup for audio. That we create these images for people, these audio images or sonic images that nobody lives up to. And people listen to these things and think that there's some way connected to reality when they're quite far removed. And so I've been skeptical about editing, for a long time. So we're taking it to another level with the AI stuff. But I think there's multiple points of attack because here's the painful truth is your average listener doesn't want to listen to something that isn't perfect. Your average listener is so accustomed to hearing things that are so sonically polished. They don't want to look at a rough diamond. They want to look at a polished, perfectly cut diamond. And so, and I don't know that the diamond metaphor is really an apt metaphor for this, because when you've chopped something up and you've added a bunch of effects to it, how much of the raw material is even there? Are you even getting to experience the raw beautiful material that you do if you're looking at a diamond. So not perhaps the best metaphor, but what we're doing with AI now is manufacturing sounds that aren't even being played by a person, perhaps. I understand that it's pulling from huge libraries of recordings that were done by humans and were played. And I will say that the AI is nothing short of incredible when it comes to the production of music. Its ability to produce well-mixed, well-mastered, well-played parts that even sound authentic, from the vocals to instruments like guitar, which you would think is very difficult to get an AI robot to emulate. If you listen closely through a 3 to 4 minute track, you'll be able to distinguish parts that are very clearly done by AI, whether it's in the vocals or whether it's in a guitar part. But there are also large amounts of the performances that sound very authentic, and the degree to which the AI robot generation is able to produce something that sounds like authentic fingers on strings sliding up and down a fretboard is uncanny. It's incredible. So, with all that said, and I think there's another angle here that maybe some people overlook, which is a lot of people are upset at this AI music, and I think plenty of people are going to throw it out to the garbage and reject it on the basis, on a sort of ignorant basis or hypocritical basis, where the real reason why it's being rejected by many people is because it puts a lot of people out of business. Just like any technological innovation in any industry, when things level up, there are people that spent years developing a skill and it's no longer needed. And that's the case here, is that this makes a lot of people's skills obsolete within the industry. And so that in and of itself is not a reason to get rid of a technology or not to use it. And then I want to take it back to how I was saying that when we're obfuscating truth and we're using tech like editing or AI to produce things that no human can actually produce in a live take. And what are we actually communicating, and what effect are we actually having on culture? To what extent, I think you need to ask yourself, as an artist, as somebody that's trying to make meaningful art or compete in an industry, to what extent are you fighting a losing battle by not using it? If the truth of the average listener, and by average listener I mean the vast majority of listeners, is that they aren't going to be able to tell the difference, it's going to impact them emotionally just the same as if you had done it authentically. And tons of other people are going to be using it and have a competitive advantage if you don't. Then if you are the arbiter or the force behind, if you're pushing out what you believe is an important message, a cultural message, an impact that you want to have through your art, then I question whether or not it's a necessity to use this tool. I think perhaps this tool is going to be around for not that long of a time. It's probably going to advance very quickly, and many people's skills are going to become obsolete. And so we might, as authentic artists, we might even have a very short window to utilize this tool before we can't even rise above the noise. So I'm finding that as somebody that has spent the majority of my life pursuing the development of my music and cultivating my message and my ability to perform it and to record it and produce it, I've developed myself as a songwriter, as a singer, as a performer. And I, by myself, have been unable to elevate what I'm doing to a level that gets consumed on a popular level. And I think there's many reasons for that, one of which is the culture just needs to be receptive to it, and they may not be. The kind of art that I'm making is not art that the public, your average listener, is ready or able to consume. When songs like WAP chart number 1, I think that says a lot. And how can I expect that songs like Can't Forget, which is about honoring your birth and the love that you see in your parents' eyes and people that bring you into the world, the sort of the depth of understanding and the nuance of the emotion, the depth of the emotion that's communicated there, probably the mentalities that consume a song like WAP are incapable of really comprehending on it and taking into a deeper level the message and emotions behind a song like Can't Forget, or behind a song like How I Can Say Goodbye. And so it's like, how do you get people to listen to these things that they need to listen to and that they'd be better off listening to? And I think one of those ways may be utilizing this technology to produce things that sound in the ballpark of what they're more used to listening to. Tonalities that their ears are accustomed to, phrasings or arrangements that they're sort of stylistic things in the music that their ears are more accustomed to accepting. And this goes to things that I've learned through a lot of trial and error and experience, and something that I've harped on in the past, which is performing at Sunday 5 o'clock Wine Bar in Long Beach for every Sunday for like a year, for 6 hours every Sunday, and noticing how people largely are herd animals and follow what the pop trends are, and it even replicates itself in something as simple as a wine bar and a small music venue. In the early stages, when I would question whether or not it was my own talent level or a personal flaw or a character flaw that was revealed through how I look or how I carry myself, that was impacting whether or not people would sit down and listen to the music, and I had lots of self-doubt. Over time, what I realized is it had a lot more. Sure, I had some influence on that. If I was in a better mood and my energy was better, that would make it more, I'd be more successful. But mostly it had to do with if I could get somebody to sit down, or rather if I happened to be blessed with somebody that would walk by and was just the kind of person or the kind of group that were inclined to forge their own path, that were inclined to be willing to publicly take a risk, even a risk as simple as sitting down and, in doing so, vouching for an unknown artist at a venue. That it takes a somewhat special kind of person to be willing to be the first person to publicly approve with their action by sitting down of someone else. When they sit down, they're acknowledging and they're revealing themselves as, to some extent, a supporter of what's going on in that particular space. And if they weren't, then they probably wouldn't sit down. And so as soon as you get somebody to sit down, or as soon as somebody's willing to, it makes it far more likely that the next people that pass by will. And once you have two different people, two unrelated people, or two different groups that have sat down and demonstrated their support, then a venue will usually, if it has any kind of foot traffic around it, it will fill up relatively quickly after that. The point being, people are herd animals and followers, and people largely follow power, and they follow custom. They follow what's comfortable. So perhaps utilizing popular genres or popular stylistic things, maybe vocal tones, deliveries. I mean, I think it's probably no different from utilizing styles of clothing or hairstyles. that you look for cues that indicate this person's one of us, this is one of me. It's like they're like me. And if you have these cues, which often are subconscious for people, they don't even know, but they process these things on a subconscious level, and they know, because people are very smart on a subconscious level. And then they will either be receptive to information or not receptive to information based on these subconscious cues that they've learned over years. And so it can be very hard to break through to people and get them to listen even to information that would greatly benefit them. So I guess I'll wrap this up and summarize by once again saying, I think AI and a lot of this stuff is probably not that good. And I think truly, if we really looked at it, if God could reveal, whether you believe in God or not, if an omniscient being could reveal to us the truth, we might find that we were better off without much of the technology that we actually have today. Because the tech comes with dark sides. The advancement gives you comfort. It makes certain things easier. And that robs you of development in other ways. And it robs you of experiences that you would otherwise have. Maybe I can conclude with this particular idea. I worked with a songwriter on hundreds of songs over the years, of his songs. But for a couple of years, I had a studio in Long Beach that was in a detached garage, kind of old carriage house that was gifted to me as a place to live and work. And we worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of different artists that would come in and sing on his songs or perform different instruments on his songs. And we would create demo versions of his songs. I'm trying to remember where I was going with that. Right. AI has made it so that process that we did is no longer really necessary. If you want to create a demo version of your song, what I would suggest is get a guitar. If you know how to play guitar or you know how to play a piano and you can sing, you don't even need to be that good at it. But if you have a good sense of song structure and you've written something out with a chord progression and a melody, and you can get it down roughly, then you can upload that to AI, and it will be able to very well understand what your vision was and bring it to life with guidance. And so you don't need to go through the process of finding instrumentalists and paying money, significant amounts of money, to hire them and schedule these different people and communicate with them and go through all the process that this songwriter that I work with called Herding Cats. And you don't have to do that anymore. And it's far easier and extraordinarily cheap to get better versions of your songs than you would have gotten doing that way. That would have taken days of effort. But do you know what you lose by doing it this way? Is you lose a lot of that difficulty. But by the same token, you lose a lot of the camaraderie, and you lose a lot of the growth and personal development that came along with those things. You lose the ability to nurture and build relationships with a lot of different people and learn things along the way that you otherwise wouldn't. I'll tag on to that there is an advantage to having well-developed tracks when you upload these to AI, and you will get better results with AI if you have produced well-developed tracks already. But it's just not necessary, and you got to question as to whether or not it's worth it. And on some level, I doubt that almost anybody will make that kind of an effort at this point. It's just it doesn't seem on its face to be worth it. And that's, I guess, maybe the big question I want to hammer home, is that it's seductive, this technology. And the things that we lose may be hard to consciously have proper awareness of. And we might not realize it on a conscious level until it's, become obvious, because the consequences have accumulated and it's smacking us in the face with how everything has deteriorated and degenerated. Perhaps that's what we're going through right now. Perhaps a lot of what we're seeing in the current state of society has nothing to do with ideology, or it has nothing to do with global warring powers or hypocrites or traitors. And perhaps it has to do with the degeneration of culture that has come from technological advancement, that is a direct consequence of technological advancement without taking proper care and a responsible approach to using it. To recklessly making it an enormous integral part of our cultures across the world without proper consideration and protection against the icebergs, the subtle or under the radar massive consequences or issues that are inherent. And so I think that's enough for this video, and I think that gives you a lot to think about. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like there are that many people that really want to think about this stuff, or are truly willing to abandon this addiction to progress that we have. But we're so addicted to progress and this idea that our technologies and our progress are going to save us from our problems. And yet, in a world that can go to outer space in a ship, in a world that can communicate a video message from California to China in milliseconds, we're unable to take care of homeless people and get people off of drugs. How can you have such profoundly powerful technology and billionaires and be unable of taking care of and having psychological health among millions, if not billions, of people on the planet?